Welcome back, everyone. After battling two different colds, one right after the other, I am back. Have you ever gone to a swap meet and walked around and you find this one plane is just screaming at you saying, yeah, you can make me better? Well, that happened to me a couple years ago with this Stearman. We had a swap meet fly-in at our field, and some guy brought this along, and I'd seen it sitting there. Needs a lot of help, but I decided, yeah, it's a good scale project, and it looked like a Sterling kit. I wasn't sure at the time, but I was 95% positive it was Sterling kit, just because of the size and the outline. And I asked the guy how much it was, and he says, give me 20 bucks. I kind of hemmed and hawed at that, and after a little more dickering, we settled up, and I brought it home. And sure enough, after measuring it out, it is a Sterling Stearman PT-17. It's really straight. I'm surprised how straight the guy built it. The construction's real good. He seems to have a little experience in building, except for that firewall. I can't figure out what they're trying to do with that firewall. Possibly they're trying to fit a cowling to the plane or something, and they put this half-inch big chunk of plywood on the nose. I'm going to end up probably cutting that off and getting rid of that. Let me tell you a little bit about it, and I'll put this up on the screen so you can see it. It has a 64.5-inch wingspan. Length is 50 inches and is built for a 56 to a 65 two-stroke back in the day. And the ad goes on, you can probably read it. No deviation from scale outlines, scale airfoil section, and scale rib spacing and wings and tail surfaces. True scale fuselage construction with sheet covered sections and scale stringer spacing. And it has scale dihedral. It's supposed to have a plastic dummy engine, which I never got. It's Continental. No rubber bands, but in the day that was something. There's no rubber bands. And at 64.5 inches, it comes out to a scale size of 1/5.93 and some change. And the full scale has a 32-foot wingspan. Color schemes. I downloaded some color schemes that I was thinking about trying, and this one, right down here, I'll put this on the screen also, is a paint scheme from Grosse Ile, Michigan. And I'm from Michigan, so I'm kind of partial to that, and I think I'm going to do that in the color scheme of Grosse Ile. And I have a couple of engines that I was thinking about putting in. One is a single cylinder Sato 91. The thing about this particular engine is that when it's centered into that dummy radial, it's the same height as the cylinders, and you can hide it really well. So I figured this might be the way to go. And I was considering a different motor, different engine here. And this is a Sato 91 or 90 twin or 91 twin. I can't remember now. It's been a while. But I got this at a Steel also. This has less than a season on it, and it wasn't flown all that much. I couldn't give you an hour time, but I got it for 50 bucks, and this thing has tons of compression. But since the cylinders are an odd number, there's no two cylinders that are straight across from each other to make this look right. So the twin is out and the single cylinder is in. But I do have a place for this. I inherited from my dad a red box top flight Japanese Zero, and this fits really nice in the cowling of that, so I'm thinking I'm going to go that route. The covering on this is Cover-Rite, and it's really bad. It's stained, and I don't know exactly what happened to it, but it's wrinkly. I can't shrink it. and I don't think I want to because it's kind of heavy. So what I'm going to do is strip it all off. I might do this in silk, real silk, just to get that look of fabric back to it. And I'll probably end up painting it with an epoxy paint. Get out the spray guns and spray her up. Now the radial, the dummy radial is a Williams Brothers 1/6 scale Wasp. I picked that up at a swap meet in between my colds. It just so happened that I felt good on the weekend, so I took off, went to the swap meet, and by the time I came back, I was sick as a dog. But I picked that up along with a whole bunch of cylinders that go with it, a bunch of extra ones, almost one short of making another dummy engine, but I got a heck of a deal on that. The guy who sold it to me, he had this and a pile of Williams Brothers stuff there, and we dickered for a little while, and for less than 30 bucks I walked away with that dummy radial and a whole bunch of Williams Brothers parts. And after looking it up, I found out I got a little more than half off on what it would have cost me for those parts alone, so I was pretty pleased. Things I'm going to have to do on it. You can see that, like I said, it has to be stripped. I'm going to go through and I'm going to check every glue joint on it, make sure it's not going to fall apart in the air. The end struts need working. They just kind of sit in there, and they don't sit in there very well. The cabane struts don't sit into the wing very well, so that has to be reworked. It needs windshield glass made. I probably have to make a frame out of fiberglass and then put in the clear plastic for the glass, and instrumentation and pilots and things like that. It needs a boot down here on the tail wheel to make that look right, and the front struts need some kind of covering, or I'll make a shock absorbing, it'll be fake, but it'll look like a shock absorbing landing gear on that. Not too much else to tell you about. The wheels, I'll probably find some more scale wheels somewhere that'll look better. So that is just about it on this old timer here. So I will put this away, put these motors away, and break out the Cougar stuff and get started on that cockpit interior. So let me clear this off. I'll run the intro and I'll be right back. Kits, I think, are the way to go because you don't have that cookie cut. Actually, fiberglassing, painting, is you roll it forward, kind of press it like this. As hard as a brick bat for a leading edge. One last thing on tip blocks is that you want to cut outside the line. SIG Cougar build part 8. Performance. We are on step 29 in the manual. Welcome back, everybody. I know it's going to be back. This is part 9 of the SIG Cougar build. This is a SIG Cobra. It's the 20 size version. Just to give you a little refresher, you're looking at the instrument panel and the shrouding for the instrument panel in the drawing. And I have everything pretty much cut out now. I've actually put some of it together. I just kind of framed it up a little bit, and you can see that I used this 1/8 inch square to brace it up. Now on the bottom here, to add a little more gluing area, I just slapped in a little piece of 16th, no big deal. But what I did is I measured out this little piece of 16th at the width I wanted, and measured in the taper where I wanted it. Just sat it inside the cockpit area and squeezed it in until I found the right size I wanted, and measured that and cut a little chunk of this 1/8 inch, glued it in, and built it up. I didn't think you needed to see me do that. That's pretty rudimentary. And the instrument panel just kind of fits in there like that. The top is cut a little oversized. Let's see, which way does it go? It goes this way. Sits on there, just like that. And you can see here's the old one, the Pilot. And you're probably saying, hey, there's another Pilot. And yes, they are identical. this guy has been through a lot of aches and pains, and he's getting to be a little bit ratty looking. So what I did is I casted a rubber mold of him, and then I dumped in some polyester resin and just made one out of rubber. Let me show you the mold. Now what I did is I made a little box, took my guy, stuck him in here about halfway. It's like that. And I used they call it molding clay. And I used the clay to stick him in there, and he stuck pretty well. And what I did is I used let's see, where is it? Right here. I didn't have any Dow 3110, which is better than this, but I saw this at Hobby Lobby, so I thought I'd give it a shot. It's fairly expensive, 30 bucks for this little bit, and it comes with it's kind of like a catalyst and a base. Mix it all up. They got little measuring spoons and things that you measure it up, and you cast your part. Okay, I'm just gonna leave this so you're clowning around with it. So what I had was this section here. This is the face. He goes just in there like that, and I just dumped it level. And then I have another box that goes on top of this, and I just kind of glued it on there and then wrap masking tape around that. And did that. Well, Dow 3110 won't stick to itself, so it pops apart. This stuff wanted to, so I had to use a knife and cut down the seam, popped it apart that way, no big deal. Pulled him out, stuck the two halves together, and I put it back into the wood, squashed it together real tight, and just filled it with polyester resin. And then after it hardened up, about an hour or so, I popped him out and ground him hollow. Not hard at all. So I got a new pilot. Another thing I had to do was this guy right here, this rubber hose for his mask. And it is completely rotten. You can see that it's cracked and it's no good. And it was short. It was only about this long, which isn't long enough to actually do anything with. So I had to stick on a piece of fuel line tubing, which didn't look very good. So what I did is I made a new rubber hose. Let me zoom in on this and let you take a look at it. There it is. And the old rubber hose was corrugated, so I had to figure out a way to make the corrugations on this thing to make it right. So what I did, let me flip this around, is I used a piece of nylon. Okay, this is just that heavy duty nylon. It was about almost the right size, but a little small. And I wrapped it with a cord, some thin cord. I don't know what size it was, but like a thread, but heavier. And just wrapped it up. And when I get it all cut down and stuck in there, it's gonna look just like a rubber tube. You won't know the difference. Well, you might, but it's close enough for me, especially on a sport model. So that explains the pilot, and I hollowed out the snoot on his mask, so this sticks right up in there like that. I don't know if you can see it. And I'll glue that in place and it'll stay there. Really not much left to do on this particular piece. All I have to do is glue on this top, trim it, and start adding the plastic. And that won't take very long at all. And it looks like I forgot to grab my glue, so I'm going to grab my glue and we'll continue on. What I'm using is a medium CA glue, kind of gap filling. Take out the instrument panel. I'm just going to lay down some medium CA glue on the framework. It's about like that. Take my piece of balsa, and there's imperfections in this, but it doesn't matter, this is getting covered up. So stick it on there fairly evenly, if possible. Now I'm going to hold this a second, and then I'll trim it off. Have my knife. It doesn't look thoroughly dry, but I'm going to cut it anyways. Just trim it right along the edges. Like that. We'll let it set up a little bit more, and then I'm going to take a sanding block to it. Just give me a moment here. Trim this back piece off. And as usual, if you hear any extra noise, that's my furnace. It's only 6 foot away, so it's gonna kind of try to drown me out. I'm keeping it square. I don't want to make any curved angles on it, because I have to lay down some plastic. Okay. Now I cut out this plastic sheet. This is 10,000 styrene. I mentioned it in the last video. It's an evergreen product. It comes in sheets. I mentioned that before. And what I'm going to do is just glue this on here. Okay? And I'm just going to use my CA glue. Just kind of wiggle it on there, and I gotta get a little closer to the edge here, I think. And again, medium CA. Okay, you probably won't be able to see what I'm doing, but I have to see what I'm doing in this particular instance. There it is. There, one side is on. And once I get this on here, I need to trim it off. It looks like I got some glue on here already. I might be able to get rid of that with a knife, but do that again. And you make sure you put the glue on the right side, otherwise you might have two lefts and two rights or something. You know, it'll really mess you up. Then you have to cut new ones. And yes, I've had to cut new ones before because of that. Several times, actually, not paying attention to what I'm doing. Not on this particular one, but on other ones. Okay. Let's push this down and get a good contact on the wood. That looks pretty good. And what I'm going to do is just sand this down. Let's see. 220 might be the way to go. Just level it out with the top of the balsa wood. So when I lay the top sheet down, it should lay flat. A little bit more on this side. A little bit more. Okay. It looks like I misplaced the top piece, so give me a second. I'm gonna go hunting for a piece of plastic. Be right back. Hooray, I found it. Now I need to glue this right on here, and I'm going to try to find the smoothest side to be on the outside of the thing. And they feel about the same. I feel a little roughness on this one, so this is going to be my downside. And this time, I'm going to put the glue on the balsa. Just like that. I'm going to put enough on here to make sure it doesn't come off. Okay, I'm going to line it up with the very front. So that's even. It's one less cut and sand I might have to do. And lay it on there gently. Smooth it out. So I was a little off on this side. I got a little bit of a problem right here that I'll have to take care of. That's not a big deal. Well, the front's straight. I thought it was a better piece than that, evidently not. That's okay. I can live with it. Okay, I'm going to trim off the side. Take my time so I don't cut too much off. Okay. Sand this up front, smooth it out. And I'm kind of glad I made a mistake on that, because I can show you how to repair it if you make a mistake yourself. So give me a second to finish the trimming on this. It never dawned on me I was going to make a mistake. But I did. All right. Now with this overlap, it doesn't have to stay square. You can kind of round it a little bit and get away with it. So I'm probably going to do that. There's not much leeway there, but enough to take the edge off. You don't want to go sanding all the way through it. It's not quite sanded flush yet. Okay, there we go. Something's not quite cooperating down at this end. That's better. Okay, I'll do the same thing on this side. Level it. And take a little off the edge. There. It doesn't look so, I don't know, square. Which is a look I'm going for. Once you make this, just kind of a thought, you could actually cover this with Partol, spray it with Partol. It's a mold release, and then you can cover it with fiberglass and make an outside mold of this, and then when you pop that off, you can lay the glass on the inside and you'd have one of these made out of fiberglass. Never dawned on me to do that because it's kind of simple to do, and I never expected really to make so many of these. Otherwise, I probably would have had one. But that's okay. At least this way, I can show you how it's done. Probably a good many of you already know how it's done. Okay, I can see I'm not perfectly square back here, but I don't think it's going to matter. I don't think anybody's going to be able to see that up underneath the canopy, because it'll be hidden under the slope, and it'll come up, the canopy frame will probably come up into about here, I'm guessing. Alright, now I'm going to show you how to fix that little mistake I have right there. I don't know if you can see that, but this piece was cut too square, so the top piece didn't quite cover all the way out on the end where the plastic is. So the only way to fix that is to fill it or rip it off and start over again. I don't want to rip it off, so let me grab some putty. This is called Evercoat. It's a single stage body filler for cars. Spot glazing putty. It dries fast, it's easy to sand, and you can make a mess of things if you're not careful. But there's no mixing required. I use this on my airplanes actually. Once I prime, get everything done, I prime it and I see maybe little imperfections, I'll smear a little bit of this on there using a spreader and take care of that problem. Let's see if I can find a strong enough piece of balsa to take care of this. All I need is just a little dab. A big tube like this lasts you forever. I really can't tell you how much it costs. It wasn't that much. And I'm going to put a good portion on there to make sure that I have it all covered up. You don't want to play with it because it'll just start to ball up on you. You just want to get it on there. Once it's on where you want it, that's your cue to leave it alone until it dries. I don't want to leave too much on there. I'm going to take some excess off. There's all kinds of spot glazing putties out there. You don't have to use this particular one. I'm trying to remember where I bought this. I think I bought this from the auto parts store in town. CarQuest or Auto Value or something. And there's 16 ounces of this stuff. The last time I bought a tube was maybe 4 or 5 years ago. It lasted me that long. So when you buy a tube, expect it'll be around for a while. There's other spot glazing putties, like I said. Some are green, some are gray, but this one happens to be red. You can go into your hobby store and find something called Squadron putty. I think that's what it's called, Squadron green putty or something. It's a green color anyways. And that works pretty well. It's nice and fine. I used to use it when I built plastic models way back. Okay, I need to let this dry. When it's dry, I'll come back, sand it out, and squirt a little paint on this. I decided before I paint this, I'd like to show you that corner. It's not a real big deal, just a little putty on the corner that I need to sand out. I'm going to take some 320 sandpaper and rub that down. And when I get that done, I'll be back and I'll show you the corner after I sand it, and then we'll get to the painting. It's all sanded out, and I think I'm ready to slap on a little paint. So I'm going to take this over to the corner and mix up a little bit of Testor's paint and shoot it black. When that's done, we'll get on with the seat. I decided to show you a little bit of airbrushing. I'm going to be using this little guy right here. This airbrush is made by Master. It's a cheapie, but it works well. The model number of this is SB84. It comes with a few attachments and a wrench and another jar for spraying. I got some other stuff thrown in here from other guns, so that won't be important. It comes with this little That might be a ½ ounce or something like that. Little hopper and a lid, of course. And for paint, I'm using the Testors Flat Black. I'm not using it straight though. I put in to this little container 20 drops of black. Okay, and to knock it off of that solid black, I added 2 drips of white. And I counted the drips off of this. I dipped it in and counted the drips in here because it won't take much to paint that. If it takes more, I got an accurate count of the paint drops that I need to make it work. Then I used 1/3 of the amount of thinner to make it a real loose mix. So you're looking at 17 drops of paint, and I used, let's see, I used 13 drips of the thinner. And I don't use the Testors thinner, even though it is good thinner and there's nothing wrong with it, but I find that Mineral Spirits does a good job. And for air compressor, I got this old, very old Miller airbrush compressor. It's on its last legs, and it's not really for this style of airbrush, but as long as I keep the air on, it's fine, because it doesn't have a shut-off valve on it or anything like that. Okay, I need to remix my paint. It's been sitting a little while. And this is the black mixed with a couple drips of white, and about 2/3 of this is thinner. I mean, it's pretty loose. Tempted to make it a little bit more watery, but I'm going to try it, see how it sprays. I'm going to test it, and I'll go from there. All right, put this off to the side. Dump this guy into the hopper. And I let it sit a few minutes like this so all the drips will come out. I find as long as I keep the button pressed down, it won't build up too much pressure. And I'll turn a little bit so you can see. Just putting on a little, real light hazy coat. Not too heavy. That pretty much has it. I got to do this little bit of a face right here. Almost forgot. Got to get it before I run out of paint. Okay, there it is. All nice and black, front, rear, sides. Now I need to let it dry for a little bit. And when it does, I'll be back and we're gonna glue the instrument panel cluster right in. Back in a minute. Well, here it is. We'll get a close-up of it in a minute after we put the instrument panel cluster in. Nice and smooth. A little bit of dust already. But now I need to glue the instrument panel itself into place. So, as before, medium CA glue. And I'll just run some on the inside of here. Onto the framework. Like that. Set this guy in here for the very, very last time. Kind of hold it for a few minutes, a few seconds actually. Now this thing is kind of dusty from sitting around, so when I do a close-up, don't razz me about the dirt. Okay. There it is. There's the instrument panel and the console it goes into. Let me zoom in on this and take a look and tell me what you think. Well, so much for the dash. It's complete. The instruments are in, the switches, you can even see the one that's stuck in the on position. Let's get on with the seat. You probably recognize the drawing of the backrest. This one's a simple one, the advanced one over here. This is the one I'll be doing. There's going to be some interesting things about this. You've seen how I cover in plastic the framework. All the parts, I've already cut out all the parts except for this top piece. It's a soft package of some kind. I'm going to make that out of Bondo, and there's some kind of strap that goes over top of it, and the chute pack in the back, which also has a strap around it. I'm going to have to make that. That'll be made out of Bondo as well. Not much really to tell you about it. The headrest is probably going to be just a piece of balsa wood. I'm not sure if I'm going to do anything more than that, and then give it a covering of paint. There'll be a little trim piece that goes around, and that'll have like fake rivets on it and some fake rivets on the inside of this. Nothing real difficult, just a little bit time consuming, so I'm going to put this drawing away and we'll get at it. I got everything laid out that we need. I have everything cut out. I have my wooden pieces to make the framework, the plastic pieces to cover up the framework, the trim pieces, and let's see. I have some masking tape here, and my square, knife, wood, and a little chunk of wood that I've already cut, miter box and saw, which is optional, and definitely a ruler that you'll need if you're gonna try to replicate this. What I did is I took my little drawing and I measured out the parachute pack and the little pack on top, and that's what I'm going to start with first, is doing the Bondo molding. And these are, I can't remember exactly how big they are. Oh, let's see. Okay, these are about 5/16 wide. I cut it off with this strip right here. Just used my ruler, measured it out, cut it. And that makes these little boxes right here. What I'm going to do is take these little boxes, I'm going to pour Bondo in here, I'm going to mix up a big bunch, dump it in here, work the air bubbles out, skim it, and wait for it to dry. And you're probably thinking, well, it's going to stick to my wood. Well, it won't, because I'm using masking tape on my wood. Each piece of wood, this is the little box, on one side is covered up with masking tape, and Bondo doesn't stick to masking tape, so that's not a big deal. And really, it's a very simple thing to do if you can find the end of your tape. Well, this stuff doesn't want to come off. I just tear a little chunk like that, stick it on my wood, take my knife and trim up around it. Like that. You don't need to cover the edges or anything because it's not important, because the edges of the Bondo get sanded round anyhow. Okay, there's that. Sticking to itself. I've already done the other 3, so that box is going to be ready to put together. And what I do, excuse me, I put it on a wider sheet of masking tape. This is 1 inch and it's not quite 1.5 inches. It is, let's see, 1 5/8 inches. But I laid it down onto my bench. I'm going to assemble this box and glue it down to this masking tape. So let's get to that. And this is where your square comes in handy, so you can make a square box. And it looks like my tube has had it. I like using this square because I can go in a box type setup. Try it again here. Let's see. Does that go? No, that goes on the inside. I put that on the wrong side. And you just put your box together. I like just laying it up against the square. That way I know at least my shape will be correct. Next piece. And the last piece. And that makes my square box. Nothing major about it, no big deal. Definitely nothing to write home about. Now that I have my box made, I'm just going to tag glue it down to the masking tape. And it'll spot on all 4 sides. Stick that down to the masking tape, let it sit for a minute. And while this is drying, I'm going to go grab my Bondo. Grab my Bondo. It's just everyday run-of-the-mill Bondo you get at your auto parts store or wherever. Has a cream hardener. Get my screwdriver here and pop the top. And you probably notice I don't have nothing to mix it on, but that's not a problem because I am going to mix it right on the glass. It's one good thing about glass tables. I'm going to mix enough of it to fill both of these up. That should be enough. It looks pretty close. Cream hardener. You can see it's a reddish color. I'm sure some of you have worked with it before. You don't need a lot. Just enough to turn it pink. It takes a little while for it to set up, so you got playing time with it. But you want to mix it thoroughly so there's no more gray. Get that nice beige color here, or peach color, or whatever you want to call it. And I'm going to push it in to these boxes. I like doing one corner and letting it push its way across. And it pushes the air out as you go. It's kind of slow this way, but it does work well. Far less air bubbles to worry about. Only problem you have is time. You gotta have enough time to do it. And once it's packed on one side, you can just start filling from the edges, and it'll push the Bondo into place as you go. Try to shove it into these corners a little better. Okay, that's it. As it dries, I'll carve the top off when it gets kind of rubbery, so it'll be less of a problem. And this one is so small, it's going to be easy to fill it up. Keep pushing it down. Trying to get as much excess off as I can. I think that's just about going to do it. Just a matter of leaving it alone. Alright, that's it. I'm going to clean this up. And when I come back, these should be hard, and we'll take them out of the boxes. Well, the Bondo's starting to harden up. It's just enough to carve. It's still kind of soft. I can take this long X-Acto blade. I'm not really sure the number of this blade, but I can take this blade and trim it off flush. Carves very easily this way. Something like that. Trying real hard not to carve into the wood. Okay, when that dries a little bit more, I'll take it out of the holder, get this little one. Take it down to the wood frame. If I take it down to the wood frame, then it won't stick because the masking tape is just below the wood frame. All right. Actually, I can break this out. So what I'm going to do is pop these ends loose, like that. The tape is going to kind of stick to the Bondo, but it's not stuck. Okay, this guy is being a little bit more of a problem here. Oh, took the whole thing off. Take this tape off, like that. And grab my Bondo square. There it is. Square piece of Bondo, super flat on one side. We'll do the same thing to the other one, if I can. Here's a chunk. Get this out of the way. Two sides. This one's stuck to the masking tape pretty well. And this one wants to come off. Peel the masking tape off. Now this is still stuck down to the masking tape, so all you have to do is peel the masking tape, pops right off. There it is. So that's the top, whatever you call it, and the back chute. And you can see I have angles already made into this, so it conforms to the angle of the seat. Like that. So we'll let these harden up, and I'm going to start shaping them here in a minute. I want it just a little bit harder, and then I can utilize my sandpaper on it. So in the meantime, I'm going to peel this off. What I like to use is 80 grit, and just work it over gently, because right now it's super easy to sand. The shape of that top box is just rounded on the corners a little bit. Now I'll bring them into a close proximity to what I want, and I'll put the final sand to it when it dries hard. One more side. Round up these corners a little bit. Like I said, this is only a rough sand. It's not meant to be perfect or anything. There's that one. See, I had a little bit of a air bubble here, but I'm not going to worry about that too much. It's just going to be primarily tucked up inside. And I might be able to roll around the roll the sanding edge down a little bit and hide it. If not, then I'll use some spot glazing putty and patch it in. No big deal. Okay, put that down. And this guy is the chute. I think it goes this way. So I'm just gonna kind of flatten it up a little bit. And I'm gonna round the edges just like the other one. You're probably thinking, oh, this is going to be kind of heavy, but I'm going to do the same thing I did to my pilot that I cast in polyester resin, and I'm going to hollow it out with the Dremel tool. and around the edges. Okay, there's the last piece right there. I'll fine sand this. I don't mind if it's a little rough because it's going to be tucked behind and it doesn't have to be perfect. And besides, it's actually a piece of cloth. So cloth isn't perfectly smooth either, so it should be okay. I might just sand a little bit on it here to get it closer, but it's still rubbery. It feels like it's at the consistency of a one of those pink erasers. That's what it feels like right now. So I'm gonna let this sit, let it dry, clean up a little bit. I'll be back and we'll finish these up. Had a bit of a camera malfunction. My fault, but anyway, I'll tell you about what I did and we'll go back a little bit and I'll show you how I did some other things here. But what I did is I put some spot glazing putty on the chute and this little pack on the top. You can see the little dots. I don't know, maybe you can't, it's kind of small. And sanded that all out. And I got out some 10/1000ths styrene, found a piece of scrap, took my ruler, laid it on here, made about a 1/16 inch strip, and took my scalpel and cut 3 of those, 2 for the chute and 1 for this little pack. And then I glued them on, and the part that I could salvage was the part that I glued them on. So I'm going to show you that, and then I'm going to get out the Dremel tool. Well, while that's running, I'm going to get out the Dremel tool and hollow these things out. So let's move on. There's the picture of it. You can see the X on the top. There we go, right there. And it looks just about, let me get a good grip on this, just about like that. And I use styrene strip for that, 10/1000 styrene strip, and I use the Plastruct paint, or Plastruct glue. And the Plastruct has a tendency to melt the plastic, and it makes it very pliable for what I need to do. So there's my piece. And what I do is just lay it on, I'll put some glue on the back, lay it on there, hold it for a second, and then glue the rest of it. I didn't really measure it as far as where it goes. I kind of went by the rule of L-jar. Looks just about right. That's how I did it. Just kind of laid it on there and stuck it. So I'll do one for you real quick. And I have my Plastruct, cement, and I just put a little bit in the middle, make it nice and wet. Kind of looked over the top, said that looks just about right. Sat it down, put a little pressure on it to hold it. Wait a few seconds, and then I'll move to one of these sides here. I'm going to glue this one. I'll lay that one down. It's only going to go up to the corner. I'll glue the corner separate. Give it a little light blow and it'll dry up a little quicker. Oh, a little bit too much there. I don't usually worry about the excess because it has great capillary action and it draws itself back in pretty well. And it dries very clear. Okay, I'll go around the corner this time. Get up into the corner, kind of grab it and give it a pull. Keep it straight. Give that a few seconds. And that should stay. Should stay. It's not quite dry yet. Got a little too much on there. And a little massaging kind of helps. And that brings it around the corner. It looks like it's a little weld to the side. And if you catch it while it's still damp, it will move for you. Come on. The strap is not the straightest on here, I can see. That's okay, I don't care. Little off, it's not gonna hurt nothing. If you make a mistake and you leave a glue mark, you can get rid of that with a piece of sandpaper or scrape it down with your knife. Okay, I'm gonna clip that off just to get rid of it. Okay. Do this side. Oh, way too much. Pull that down around the edge. And hold that until it dries. If you pull too hard, the styrene will kind of mushroom out from underneath it, and that'll be something you can take care of later with your knife. Just kind of cut it and give it a scrape and it pops right off. Not a major deal. There it is. I'll cut that one off. Move my glue out of the way. Cut it off flush. Get the other side a little better. And there it is. That is the chute pack that goes right here on the drawing. And it matches kind of on the top. The basic same look. I didn't make this as thick, but that's okay. What I need to do is grind out the backside, lighten this up quite a bit. Not hard to do, it just takes a little time. So I'm going to do that off camera. I'm pretty sure you guys know how to use the Dremel tool. And I'll probably use something like this, maybe one that's round, and get in here, because I can take this and probably just gouge it this way, because it's, yeah, I'll get about halfway. Maybe I'll do this first and then take something else and take it the rest of the way. I'm not sure how I'm going to do it. I'll just have to open up my case and see what I have. So let me do that, and after I'm done, we'll be back and I'll start assembling the, let's see, I'll start assembling the main frame structure of the seat. I just finished up carving out the inside. You can see it's quite hollow now, very light. And I did it on the smaller one as well. Saves me a little bit of weight. And I also started on the seat. What I did, I'm going to zoom in on this, but I'll show you what I did. I put in some 16th inch strips. I took a piece of 16th like this and just cut little strips, you know, use my ruler and just lapped off a couple strips just to add a little bit of bracing, keep it from being so flimsy, and use my little triangle here and did the sides, made sure they're square. Got every one of these little pieces labeled. This is right, left, and the back, and this is the front piece that goes on. So I'm going to glue this on, and then start putting the plastic on, which should be fairly quick. I'm going to use my medium set like I do in almost everything, and tack that piece on here. This little box will be able to move. It'll flex until I put the top on it. And the top is going to be, of course, going to be last. Let's see. I want this piece like this. I want it to sit fairly level, so I'm going to set it down and stick the top on, or the front. Make sure it's fairly square. That should do it. And what I need to do is sand these two top edges so they're flush. So I'll get out some 220, very well used 220, and flatten it out a little bit. Now this box is very fragile at the moment. Without that top piece on, it's extremely fragile, so I got to be very careful on doing this sanding because it will snap in half. A little bit more. Okay, I might as well do the sides as well, just to square them up. I'll do a little bit more after I put the top piece on, the bottom edge. Okay. Now the top is going to be a little larger than the rest, but I did that on purpose just in case. It looks like it's larger as far as the sides go, but it might be a little short on the back. I'm not going to worry about that at the moment. I can always add to it. And I want to make sure this guy is square. So I'll just kind of set it on here. That looks pretty good. That looks pretty good. Yeah, not bad. So I'm going to glue the top on. And since it's a little short, I'm not going to put the glue all the way back. I don't know how I miscalculated that, but I did. Happens to me often. It's from not taking my time, getting in a hurry. I'll get it as centered with the front edge as I can. And it looks like it's stuck, so that's permanent. Not too awful bad. And what I'll do with this little piece that's shy, I'll take this piece of 16th and I'll just set it on the edge, slide it together, and I'll trim it off. Not a big deal. Do that real quick. A little glue. Find the straightest edge I got and stick that dude down. Almost stuck it to my table. Find my knife, wherever it is. It's right here in front of me. And I'll trim this guy off. Oh, took a chip out of it. Didn't want to do that. Must have a little glue on the blade or something. I think it's time to change blades. All right, got my blade changed. I should be able to cut this now. There we go. Much better. Except for this little corner doesn't want to separate. Must have a little extra wad of glue or something here. There we go. Sand this flush. Now I'll go all the way around. Make it square. Just like that. Now we don't need that piece. Now to put on the plastic. And the plastic is going to be, I cut the plastic a little big. That way I can trim it off even with the edge of the box. Let's see. Which side, what do I want to do first? The sides. I believe the sides are going to have to go on first. That's the way I cut them out. Okay, we'll start with the left side here. Put the glue on the box. Not putting a tremendous amount on, but I'll put enough on that I know it'll stay. Even up at least one side. That's one less side I have to trim. And let the rest hang over. Press it down. And it's on there. Just like before, take my knife. I'm going to trim it this way. Still have a little bit of glue oozing out, so I'm taking my time here. I had to start backwards because the taper on the plastic wasn't quite the way I wanted it for the knife. Okay, this side looks really good. I'll go for the bottom. I like taking my time cutting through the plastic. That way I don't break the tip of my knife. And I have a more accurate cut in the long run. Just about through. There it is. That's one side. And just like before, run my sandpaper on it, level it out, smooth it out, make it even. And I'm going to continue on with the rest. And I don't think you need to see me do that because it's just putting plastic on, sanding it off, cutting it, whatever. And when I'm done with that, we'll get on to adding the trim pieces. I'll show you how that's done. The chute, this pack on the top, and maybe a little bit of spray paint. Back in a minute. It's all covered in plastic. I even have the trim on one side. That would be the left side. Now I'm going to put the trim on the right side, and I'm going to show you how I did that. And what I did was mark on the back 1/16 of an inch in. I put little dots there. You probably can't see it because it's so small. And the same on the top. And the front piece of trim is a different size, so I marked that 1/8 of an inch in because I didn't want such an aggressive lip as the back, because this is where the pad goes for the back and the headrest, so that had to be a little thinner. And how I do this is I'll take my strip and I'll put it in place and hold it with my finger, and I'll put the glue on the inside and let it seep in. So I'm going to do that, double check my marks. Now I'll just hold that for a second and see if I got it all in there. It looks like it. I think it's going to stay. Yep, that's pretty good. Okay. And the next one I've got to do is the back, because the top piece lays over top of both of them. Or, no, it's not the back, it's the front. I'm sorry. And I do it the same way. Put the edge on my dots. It's not cooperating here. Okay. Lay my glue on the inside, just let it find its way in. Hold it in place for a little bit, kind of squeeze it down along the edge. And that is that. That takes care of that. I'm not worried about slobbing any glue because the front gets kind of covered up and the back gets covered up. The back has a chute on it, and the front will have this little balsa pad in here and a headrest, just to add a little dimension to the front. Even though you can't see it, when you look at it, you notice it's not there. Does that make sense? Okay. For the top, same thing. Hold it on my lines best I can. I can't see my line or my dots because my thumb is too big. I'm just going to do the center. Just like that. Just let it sit there. Because I'm going to use the melting action of the glue to kind of form it around these upper strips and keep it tight to the framework so it kind of looks like it bends and goes around it. Give it kind of a metallic effect. And that it takes a little finagling to get it to do that, but I think I got it figured out. And what I do is I'll take something flat and an edge on it and just kind of shove it down on the edge. Push up on one strap, push down on the other, and it gives it a kind of a crease right there. And then hold it down and let it set. While it's drying, just kind of work it with the whatever kind of edge you have and rub it on there, and it will slowly manipulate that corner. Looks like a little glue kind of wrapped around there, but not bad. Now the same thing to the other side. Get that glue deep down in there. Push it down. And the same thing with this. Put that edge on there. All right, now I need to let that set for a second. Let it gas off and get some of this excess mushrooming that I talked about out of there. As it slowly dries, it'll kind of get a little harder, and you can get your knife on there and just kind of snap it out. So that's what I'm waiting on. Let's see if I can do that now. No, it's still rubbery, but I can get it off onto a piece where I know that it's going to get cut off. Okay. I'm going to start trimming it. Get this excess off of here. And it's just right on the edge of the outside bands. Like that. And it's not quite perfect, so just shave it gently with the knife and it takes care of the problems. Now I got some of that mushrooming I was talking about on this band, and I'll come in from two directions, from the side and the top, and take it out of there. This is a big enough piece that I can probably show you what I'm cutting. What it looks like is flashing on a model kit when you got that excess plastic and it's not supposed to be there and it's kind of flashed out from their mold. That's basically what this looks like. And the piece wasn't big enough to show you, it kind of flew away on me. Okay, now I'm going to do the top. What I do is just kind of set it on my glass edge so it has something hard behind it and just trim it off. That's one. This one's being a little more difficult. There we go. That's two. Do this bottom real quick. I know I'm not talking as much, but this is starting to wear on me a little bit. Okay, make these as straight as I can make them. Put my knife against the bottom, this edge, and I use that to draw my blade across to keep a straighter edge. Kind of push down and put a cut into it, and I'll draw my knife slowly across that little cut. Come on. There it is. Little sandpaper. It don't look very good to me, but I think it's going to be close enough. All right, there it is. And kind of show you what it looks like here. Screw my glue back down. Put the chute in the back. Need something to hold that up. It'll flip over on me. Little thing on top. Come on, get in there. And the pilot will be like this. I guess it'll stay. It was falling over before I tried that and it fell over. But that is it. I'm going to carve out a headrest out of balsa, a little bit of a backrest out of balsa, and stick it on there. When I get that all cut out and stuck on there, I'll show it to you. I'm probably going to paint the balsa parts before I put them on. And all this stuff here is going to have to be painted before I put those on. So I'm going to take a break from this. And I'm pushing way over my limit usually. I'm a little over an hour, which is okay. But I'm going to let this sit. I'm going to end it right here. I'll pick up the next video. Probably I'm going to start on it in a few minutes and start with a little airbrushing, I guess, and then we'll get into setting it inside the plane and seeing what it looks like. So until then, y'all have a good one.